I awoke hastily one Saturday morning by the abrupt blare of my alarm clock. It was 7 a.m. Time to get ready. This was an annoying yet albeit familiar occurrence for me throughout the past 2 years, as I was attending a private school which required you to attend lessons on Saturdays. It took a while for me to get used to it, but eventually I didn't mind it as much, primarily down to the fact that it meant we got longer school holidays. After eventually managing to turn off my alarm, I roll out of bed, still half asleep, and wander to the bathroom. My pupils dilate as they try to adjust to the light that fills the room. I proceed to go through the motions of my daily routine. Applying antiperspirant, putting on some aftershave, brushing my teeth, and combing my short, thick brown hair into a slightly less embarrassing style than which I woke up with. I then head back into my room to get dressed. As I attend a private Catholic school, we don't have the luxury of deciding what we wear each day, and are obliged to wear a business suit, white shirt, and a school tie. Now I have to say, I'm not at all a religious person, but they seem to tolerate me there. The time is now 7:30, and I make my way downstairs, the cream-coloured carpet brushing underneath my feet as I walk. After getting my breakfast and a coffee, I round up my younger sister and head out to the car at around 7:50 to start the drive to school. On a good day, the journey takes around 15 minutes, going out of a small village I live in, into another larger town, and then onto a short stretch of country road, surrounded by lush green fields and farmland, which leads to my gothic, sprawling school. It emerges at the end of a mile-long drive, flanked by ponds and shadowed by its many towers and 2 chapels. We arrived just before 8:20 as the traffic was particularly bad on this day due to roadworks coming out of the village I live in, but we were on time nevertheless. I was thankful for this, as my school doesn't take kindly to persistent lateness of pupils. After parking my car, I go inside the entrance and head left down the main, cavernous, echoing hallway to the sign-in desk. As I walk, a slight chill washes over me, as I feel like the religious figures portrayed in the paintings on the walls are accusing me for my lack of faith. This quickly subsides, however, as my younger sister reminds me to sign her in and merrily heads off to join the rest of her year group. When I reach the registration desk, I greet Miss Tinsdale, who promptly marks me, then my sister, into a book, and I hand over my car keys for the day. Seeing as it was a Saturday, we didn't have assembly, so I started to head towards the common room area. En route, I pass an innocuous, large red door, with most of its paint chipped off, revealing its dark, brown wooden surface. That door has always unnerved me. I don't know why, but it just has. It's an ancient building, and as you'd expect, people like to create fallacies of what could lurk beyond it. Strange then, that this particular door has no known folklore. Any thought of what could be behind the large red door escaped my mind as I made my way through the day, having 2 lessons in the morning, before I went to lunch and then went to the gym. It was only as I passed the door again on my way back from the gym that I noticed it again. Only this time, it was slightly ajar. The odd thing is, I realised I'd never seen it open. Well, that's not until today at least. I rushed to get changed out of my gym gear so I could go back to the door and investigate. When I got there, the door was still slightly open, almost beckoning me inside. My initial thought was not to, as I don't like to get in trouble, but curiosity spurred me on. I grasped the round black handle of the door and carefully edged it open, hoping not to draw attention to myself. Once half open, I peered inside. What appeared before me was like a horrible cliché from a horror movie. A worn, grey stone staircase leading down into complete blackness. I have to admit I was slightly unnerved, but I couldn't resist. Dust filled the air as I slowly edged down into the abyss. The muskiness filled my sinuses, causing me to sneeze. This must have alerted a staff member walking by, as I heard a voice from the top of the stairs, asking if anyone was down there. I confessed immediately that it was me, and with a weird sense of relief, came out apologising, mumbling something about dropping my phone down there. As the teacher walked away, I cursed under my breath at the fact that my search was squandered. However, knowing what I know now, I should have left it at that and not returned. The following Wednesday was my next opportunity I had to explore beyond the stairs and behind the door, and this time I wasn't letting anybody stop me. On Wednesdays, I'm lucky enough to have no lessons, so decided to go in the morning when everybody else would be in class to minimise the risk of getting caught. Once again, I carefully turned the thick, black handle, pushing the door open. It uttered an almost comedy eerie creak. The same dusty staircase stood before me like the last time, which I proceeded to make my way down, resisting the urge to sneeze or cough several times as I went. After only about 10 seconds, I was plunged into almost complete darkness, the only light being the slither shining through the gap of the door, which I left slightly ajar. When I got to the bottom of the staircase, I tried to walk forward, but was almost immediately halted in my tracks by something solid. I turned the flashlight of my phone on to reveal a wooden door that, to my surprise, was unlocked. Thinking nothing of it, I simply walked straight in, only expecting to find cleaning equipment on the other side. For the most part, I was right. There were several mops, buckets, wet floor signs, and vacuum cleaners sporadically scattered around the room. Feeling slightly disappointed, I thought about leaving, but just as I was about to, I saw it out the corner of my eye. It was another wooden door, similar to the one that I just came through. This one took more force, but I was eventually able to get it open. A feeling of déjà vu came over me as I saw another set of stone stairs out in front of me. Only this time, they spiraled down to the right. Like an honorary member of the Scooby-Doo Club, I decided to follow them down. Unlike the last set, these stairs were lit by an unknown source coming from whatever was at the bottom. As I made my way down, I was met by a foul smell which seemed to intensify each step I took. The only way I could describe it is like a mixture of rotten eggs and burning plastic. It only took a moment before I reached the bottom of the stairs, and for the third time was met with a door. Only this time, there was a lantern hanging down from the ceiling which must have been the source of light that guided me. Becoming fed up by the amount of doors I was running into, I promised myself that if there was any more after this one, I'd turn back. In hindsight, I wish there had have been so I didn't have to witness what I did. As I turned the handle and pushed the door, I gagged and almost vomited as the smell significantly intensified and burst straight up my nostrils. Covering my nose and mouth with my sleeve, I soldiered on inside. I quickly realised, however, the smell was the least of my concerns, due to what I laid my eyes on. Despite the room being lit only by a few candles and holders on the walls, it was enough to see. After seeing this, I would never be able to look at my school in the same way again. Before me stood a pile of at least 30 human bodies, ranging from skeletal remains to still decaying corpses. I nearly passed out. I took a second to regain my composure and darted out of the room, not even bothering to close the door behind me. Taking 2 to 3 stairs at a time, I ran back through the cleaner's basement, up the original flight of stairs, bursting into the light of the hallway. Luckily, no one was outside to question my actions. After catching my breath, I looked at my phone. The time read that it was 2:38, and I had just over 20 minutes before my sister finished playing netball that day, and I had to drive her home. This was just enough time to go back to my common room and throw up in the toilet at the thought of what I'd just witnessed. I'm writing this 2 weeks on from that same Wednesday, and it's now around 8 PM. But this isn't where my story ends. I told my parents about the ordeal, who got in contact with the police. The basement was subsequently raided, and forensic tests were done on the corpses and skeletal remains. The results showed that all victims were previous students of the school, ranging from 40 years ago to no less than a year before writing this. After doing some background checks on those who were able to be identified, a common pattern showed up in almost all of them. They all had track records of bad behaviour and frequent detentions, reasons varying from assaults on other students to simply not turning up on time. I did tell you that my school doesn't take kindly to lateness.